Picture a building 6 stories tall, squeezed between 2 other buildings 6 stories tall, on a street so narrow that the sun touches the pavement for maybe 40 minutes a day, in summer if you're lucky. Now fill it with 347 people. Add 14 toilets in the backyard shared between all of them. Add 1 water pump in the hallway that freezes solid in January. Add walls so thin you can hear your neighbours breathe, cough, argue, cry, make love, die. Add an airshaft between your building and the next one. A narrow black slot of space that was supposed to provide ventilation but mostly just funnels the smell from every apartment into every other apartment simultaneously. That's the smell, by the way. I should mention the smell. Coal smoke, boiling cabbage, unwashed bodies, wet wool, something that might be lead or might be something worse, kerosene from the lamps, and underneath all of it, rising from the yard below like a slow tide, the outhouses. That's a New York tenement in December of 1887, and it's Christmas Eve, and you have 12 cents. 12 cents. Not 12 cents and $1 hidden somewhere. Not 12 cents plus whatever your husband has in his pocket. Your husband is sick. He's been sick for 11 days, which means he hasn't worked for 11 days, which means the money you had saved, the 43 cents you were building toward rent, is mostly gone now, spent on medicine from the druggist on Hester Street that may or may not be working. 12 cents is what's left. Your daughter is 4 years old. Your son is 6. It's Christmas Eve, and they know it, and they are awake right now, in the dark, in the bed 2 feet from where you're lying, waiting for something to happen. Something always happens on Christmas. Back home, something happened. Back home, even in the worst years, your mother found a way. An orange, a piece of hard candy wrapped in paper, something wrapped in something placed on the windowsill before dawn. Here, you have 12 cents and a sick husband, and a building that groans in the cold like a ship in a storm. So, no tourists tonight, no Christmas cards with snow-dusted rooftops and well-fed families and glowing windows. We're going in. I make these history stories, and I'll be honest with you, this one kept me up at night while I was researching it. Not because it's about death or disease or violence, though all of those are in here, because it's about something quieter and worse than any of those things. It's about the specific, grinding, relentless cruelty of poverty on the one day a year the whole world tells you that love is enough. Love is not enough when your children are hungry. I think you probably know that. The people in this story definitely knew it. Get comfortable, or try to. Here we go. Your eyes have been open for an hour before you admit to yourself that sleep isn't coming back. It's maybe 4 in the morning. You can't see the clock. There's no clock. You know the time the way you've learned to know it in this city by the sounds. The L train runs every 15 minutes, and the last run of the night is at 2, and you heard it go. Since then, 2 hours of something that wasn't quite sleep and wasn't quite waking. Just the grey static space between, while the cold moved through the room and settled into your joints, and your husband coughed twice, and then went quiet again. The quiet is almost worse than the coughing. You listen for his breathing. There it is, slow and a little wet, but there. The room is cold in a specific way that you haven't gotten used to, even after 2 years in this building. Cold in Poland is cold from outside, cold that presses against the walls and windows. Cold in New York in a tenement is cold that comes from everywhere and nowhere. Cold that lives in the walls themselves, in the floor, in the thin mattress stuffed with something that used to be cotton and is now mostly just compressed time. You can see your breath in the dark, just barely. There's a little light coming in from the airshaft. Not real light, just the faint grey suggestion of light from the building next door, from some window somewhere that has a lamp burning. It's enough to see the white clouds of your own exhaling. In, out, in, out. You're 26 years old. Your name is Marta. You came from a village outside Krakow 4 years ago. You came with your husband, Josef, who was going to work in the factories and save money and bring your families over one by one. Josef works the docks down at the East River piers, hauling freight off the ships from everywhere in the world. He's a big man, strong. He doesn't get sick, except now he does. 11 days of fever and cough. Not the bad kind. Not the kind that's been going through the building since October. The kind that put 2 children in the cemetery on Myrtle Avenue and left Mrs. Kowalczyk on the 4th floor so thin you can see the shape of her skull through her face. Not that kind. Just the regular winter sick, the kind that should have broken by now and hasn't. From the other bed, the children's bed, the one you saved for 3 months to buy, second-hand from the family on the 3rd floor who were leaving, going back to wherever they came from, beaten. From there, a rustling. Then a small voice. "Mama?" That's Ania. 4 years old, and she already knows to whisper in the dark. She learned that in this building. Thin walls teach you things. Still sleeping, you say, which is not quite a lie. A pause. Is it Christmas? And there it is. The question you've been lying awake dreading. Almost, you say. Go back to sleep. Another pause, longer this time. You can hear her thinking. 4 years old, and she thinks the way a much older child thinks, because this building will do that to you. It will age you past your years. There's no softness in the walls or the floor or the air to cushion you into childhood. Does Święty Mikołaj know we're here? Your throat closes. You breathe. He knows, you say. He knows where we are. She goes quiet. Maybe she believes you. Maybe she doesn't. You're not sure which would be worse. By 5, the building is starting to move. It's like that every morning. A slow creaking into consciousness, floor by floor, apartment by apartment. Someone's fire catching and sending a vibration through the shared chimney wall. Someone's door, someone's child. The cough that lives on the 2nd floor in the back apartment, the one that's been there so long it might as well be a resident itself. You know this building the way you know your own body. You know which step on the 3rd floor squeaks and which direction to put your foot to avoid it. You know that the hallway smells like lye soap on Tuesdays because Mrs. Petrescu on the ground floor mops it on Tuesdays and Tuesday only, regardless of what state it's in the other 6 days. You know that Mr. Abramowitz on the 4th floor gets up at 4:30 every morning to start his work. He does piecework, makes buttonholes, and the faint rhythmic sound of his work leaks through the walls like a heartbeat. Tap, 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 tap. There it is. 4:30, right on time, even on Christmas Eve. Because Christmas is not Mr. Abramowitz's holiday, and even if it were, piecework doesn't pause for holidays, not when you're paid per piece, and the difference between eating and not eating is counted in buttonholes. You sit up slowly, careful not to wake Josef. The floor is cold through your stockings. Not shockingly cold. You slept in your stockings, you sleep in most of your clothes. Everyone does in December. But a specific clinging cold, the kind that seeps up from the wood. The room is small. This is not a complaint. This is a measurement. The apartment is 2 rooms. The front room is 8 feet by 10 feet. It has a window that looks out onto Orchard Street, which sounds like a luxury. a window facing the street. But what it actually means is that it faces east, which means the morning light hits it first thing, which means it's slightly warmer in the mornings, and also that you hear the pushcart vendors setting up from about 5 o'clock onward, and the L train on Allen Street so close the dishes rattle. The back room is 7 feet by 9 feet. That's where you all sleep, where Joseph is sleeping now, where the children are beginning to stir. Combined square footage of your home, 123 square feet. The building has 14 apartments. Not all of them have 2 rooms, some have 1. Some of those 1-room apartments have 4 people living in them, 5, 6. You've stopped being surprised by that. The first month you were here, you were surprised by everything. Now you just live inside it. You pull your shawl tighter and move toward the small stove. The stove is the centre of everything. It heats the front room, and if you leave the door between the rooms open, it heats the back room too. Sort of after a while, on a good day when the coal is burning right. It's where you cook. It's where you dry wet clothes. The line above it is always strung with something. Stockings, a shirt, the children's underlinen. The coal bucket beside it is almost empty. You knew that last night. You know it again now, more precisely, in the light of the lamp you've just lit. There are maybe 3 handfuls of coal left. Enough for today, not enough for tomorrow, but tomorrow you'll figure out tomorrow. You build the fire slowly, carefully, the way you've learned to, not piling everything on at once, which wastes it, but building it up from the smallest pieces, letting it catch, adding to it gradually, like you're coaxing something shy and easily frightened toward you. The fire takes, the warmth begins, small, inadequate, sufficient for now. You fill the kettle from the bucket you filled last night, the bucket you carry up from the pump in the hallway every day, 2 trips, sometimes 3. The water is brownish grey, the colour of the city itself. You've stopped noticing that too. The kettle goes on the stove. You put your hands near the heat and close your eyes for a moment. Just for a moment. You need to get more coal. This is the first problem of the day, but not the last. The coal cellar on Orchard Street opens at 6. You can buy coal by the small sack for 5 cents, or by the basket for 3 cents. A basket won't last a day. A small sack will last 2 days if you're careful. You have 12 cents. You've been turning that number over in your head all night like a stone, examining every facet of it. 12 cents. 5 cents for coal. That leaves 7. A penny loaf of bread from the bakery on Ludlow. That's 1 cent. That leaves 6. A herring from the barrel outside Goldberg's. 2 cents. 4 cents left. Maybe potatoes from the pushcart, £2 for a cent, 3 cents left. You can make a meal from that. Herring, potatoes, bread. It's not nothing. It's not Christmas dinner, but it's not nothing. But it is the last of what you have. Tomorrow there's no money. The day after, none. You'll think about that tomorrow. You take the empty bucket and step into the hall. The hallway smells like coal smoke, fried onions, something sour that you've decided must be sauerkraut fermenting somewhere, and is almost certainly not something worse. Wet wood, kerosene, and a faint bass note of the outhouse from the yard 3 floors below, that somehow climbs all the way up here and settles into the wood of the walls. You've heard that people in the wealthier neighbourhoods, the brownstones uptown, the houses on Fifth Avenue, you've heard they can smell something called fresh air inside their homes, that there are rooms in those houses where the windows face a park, and in those rooms in December the air smells of cold and clean and nothing else. You try to imagine what that would feel like to breathe. You can't quite get there. The pump at the end of the hall is already occupied. Mrs. Benedetti from the third floor back apartment. She's maybe 50, maybe 70. Age is hard to judge in this building. The years compress differently here. She's wrapped in a black shawl, and she's working the pump handle with the steady mechanical efficiency of someone who has done this 10,000 times and expects to do it 10,000 more. She nods at you. You nod back. Buon Natale, she says. Wesołych świąt, you say. You don't share a language. You and Mrs. Benedetti. You never have. You share a pump, a wall, a hallway, a winter. That turns out to be enough. She fills her bucket and moves back toward her door. Her steps are slow but deliberate. She's carrying the bucket one-handed now, the other hand trailing along the wall for balance. You notice this. You've been noticing it more lately. You pump your own water. The handle is iron and cold enough to feel like it's burning. That specific cold burning sensation where you can't immediately tell which one it is. You pump. The water comes up grey in the dim light. You fill the bucket. You carry it back. When you come back into the apartment, both children are awake. Tomasz is 6. He's sitting on the edge of the children's bed, his feet hanging down, his face set with that particular expression he gets when he's trying very hard to be brave about something. Dark hair like his father's jaw already at 6. He's wearing his shirt and his trousers and his wool stockings and his coat, because in the morning you wear your coat until the room warms up, and also because he understood sometime in the last year that getting dressed himself, without being asked, is one of the things that helps. 6 years old, and he's already figured out how to help. Anya is curled against him, her face pressed into his shoulder, her dark eyes watching you over his arm. Papa's still sleeping, Tomasz says. Good, you say. He needs sleep. Is he getting better? Yes, you say, which is what you say every morning. And then, because Tomasz is 6, not 4, and Tomasz knows things, is he actually getting better, or are you just saying it? You put the bucket down. You look at your son. He's getting better, you say, and this time you mean it. Or you mean it as much as you can mean anything at 5 in the morning with 12 cents and a sick husband, and Christmas Eve stretching out in front of you like a road with no end in sight. Tomasz looks at you for a moment, evaluating. Then he nods, because 6 years old or not, he has decided to believe you, and that decision, the choosing of it, is its own small act of love. What are we having for breakfast? Anya asks. She's crawled out from behind her brother and is standing on the bed now, her hair wild around her face, clutching her doll, the doll you made her last year from rags and buttons, with button eyes and a scrap of red ribbon for hair. Bread, you say. With butter? With bread, you say. Anya looks at the doll. The doll does not appear to have an opinion. The doll wants butter, she says. The doll will have to want, you say, but you're almost smiling as you say it. You tear the bread, yesterday's bread from the loaf you bought on Wednesday. Slightly hard now, but fine, you've eaten worse, into 3 pieces. You put them on the table. You pour the hot water from the kettle into the 2 cups you own, and add a pinch of the dried herbs Mrs. Rosen on the 5th floor gave you last week, because she saw Joseph wasn't well, and she brought down a paper packet and said something in Yiddish. You didn't understand, but you understood the gesture. It's not tea. It smells a little like tea. It's warm. The children eat. Anya gives half her bread to the doll and then eats the doll's portion as well when she thinks you're not watching. Tomasz eats his cleanly, methodically, the way he does everything. From the back room, a cough, then, Marta. You go to him. He looks better than yesterday. This is either real or something you're telling yourself, but this morning you decide it's real, because the fever colour in his face has faded slightly, and when he pushes himself up to sitting, slowly, with effort, but under his own power, his eyes are clearer. "Don't get up," you say. You don't have to do anything." He sits on the edge of the bed, bent forward, his hands on his knees. He's a big man, Josef, wide through the shoulders, hands like shovels. But illness has a way of making big men look smaller, and sitting there in the grey December morning light, he looks like a version of himself with something removed from the inside. "The children," he says, "eating. Coal? Enough for today." He looks at you with the specific look he gets when he knows you're giving him the manageable version of the situation. "How much is left?" he asks. "Enough," you say. "Marta." 12 cents. A silence. He reaches under the mattress and pulls out something. A folded paper. He holds it out to you. You unfold it. It's a note from the foreman at the docks. 3 days of wages. Owed. That he hasn't been able to collect because he hasn't been able to go. The note says to present it at the office on South Street and they'll pay you out. "You can go this morning," he says, "before they close for the holiday." You look at the note. You look at him. "How much?" $1.50, maybe $1.75 with the extra half day I did the Tuesday before. $1.50. You put the note in your apron pocket. You put your hand on the side of his face. He's warm still, but not burning. You leave it there for a moment. He puts his hand over yours. "I'll be fine," he says. "I know," you say. "The children, I'll handle it." "Marta, Josef." You look at him. "I'll handle it. Go back to sleep." He lies back down. You pull the blanket up. You go back to the front room. You have a note for $1.50 and the doc's office on South Street, and Christmas Eve in New York spread out in front of you like a problem to be solved. You put on your coat. Getting out of the building on a winter morning is its own journey. The stairs of number 47 Orchard Street are wooden, narrow, and spiralling in a way that doesn't quite line up floor to floor, so that each landing is slightly off from the last, like someone built each floor without quite consulting the floor below. The banister on the second floor is loose and has been loose for the 4 years of your tenancy, and will presumably still be loose after you're gone. You come down the stairs carrying both children, Anya on your hip, Tomasz walking beside you, one hand on the wall because you've told him to always have one hand on the wall on the stairs after the Marchetti boy fell 2 years ago. Each floor you pass adds to the smell. Third floor, Mrs. Benedetti's cooking something with garlic at 5:30 in the morning, garlic. Second floor, the particular sweetness of the sweatshop smell, because the family in the front apartment does piecework sewing, and the scrap fabric and the sizing they use has its own specific perfume. First floor, the ground floor apartments always smell damp, slightly mushroomy, the cold rising from the earth below, and then the front door, and then Orchard Street. The cold hits you like a hand. Not the indoor cold, not the cold of not enough coal. This is outdoor cold, the real kind, the kind with wind off the East River behind it, and nothing between you and the sky. December 24th, 1887. Temperature, you'll learn later, was 11 degrees Fahrenheit. Your coat is wool, bought second-hand, a man's coat too big for you, belted in at the waist with a piece of twine. It's warm. Not warm enough, but warm enough for now. Orchard Street at 5:30 in the morning. You'd think it would be empty. You'd think, holiday morning, not yet light. You'd think. But Orchard Street is never empty. Not exactly. Even in the middle of the night, if you lean out the window and look down, there's movement. A figure in a doorway. A cart being positioned for the morning. A man with a pushcart who sleeps in the cart under a canvas because the cart is worth more than he can afford to pay for a room. Now, in the half dark before dawn, the street is coming alive. The pushcarts are appearing one by one, positioned in their spots. The spot each peddler occupies that is somehow permanent and inviolable, despite there being no law and no signage that assigns them. Just the communal memory of the street. Here is where Mr. Kaplan sells bread. Here is where Mrs. Fish sells pickles from the barrel that in December releases clouds of brine steam into the cold air like a small sea creature breathing. Here is where the chicken man comes with the live chickens in the crates stacked 4 high. The chickens silent in the cold, they're breathing the only thing going. Tomasz spots the chickens immediately. Mama, can we? No. But for Christmas? No. He doesn't argue. He knows in the way children who grow up in this building know things, where the lines are. He accepts it without sulking, which is one of the things about Tomasz that makes your chest ache, that he has already learned to absorb disappointment quietly. You shift Anya on your hip. She's heavy, heavier than she was a year ago. This is good. She was too thin last winter. She's less thin now. Where are we going? She asks. South Street, you say. Why? To get money. For presents? You don't answer immediately. For food, you say. Anya considers this with the philosophical equanimity of a 4-year-old. Can the food be a present? She asks. Yes, you say. The food can be a present. She thinks about this. I want a chicken, she says. You and Tomasz, you say. To get to South Street from Orchard Street, you walk east and then south, through streets that are increasingly cold and increasingly crowded despite the hour, through the neighbourhood that, depending on which block you're on, speaks Yiddish, Italian, Polish, Romanian, German, or some combination of all of these that hasn't been given a name yet. New York in 1887 is 44% foreign-born. In this particular square mile, the Lower East Side, it's closer to 70%. You can walk for 10 minutes in any direction without hearing a word of English. This is either comforting or terrifying, depending on the day. Today it's comforting. Today the streets are full of people who understand, without being told, what it means to be going somewhere urgently on Christmas Eve morning with a child on your hip and another one holding your hand. The L train runs overhead on Allen Street, and the sound of it, the grinding, shrieking, rattling roar of the elevated railway, something you could not have imagined before you came here, a train in the sky, is so familiar now that you don't hear it consciously. It registers somewhere below thought, like the sound of your own heartbeat. Below the L, in its permanent shadow, the street is darker than the streets around it. The pillars of the L structure march down the middle of the road, and between them and around them, life happens. Vendors, pushcarts, children, men standing in doorways, and here, even this early, even on Christmas Eve, a group of children, boys mostly, 6, 8, 10 years old, some younger. They're clustered near the pillars of the L, and they're doing something with small objects, marbles maybe, or bones, a game of some kind that only they understand the rules to. Your son looks at them. You tighten your hand on his. We're not stopping, you say. He doesn't look away until you've passed them. South Street is another world from Orchard Street. Not a better world, not morally, not in terms of human decency, but a different one, a louder and more industrial one, the world of the docks and the ships and the eternal machinery of the port. The smell changes here. Less people, more water, salt air and rope and tar and fish, and underneath it all the enormous smell of the East River itself, which is cold and dark and carrying everything the city has put into it for 200 years. The ships are there, even on Christmas Eve, because ships don't observe holidays. They're tied up along the wharves, massive dark shapes in the pre-dawn grey, their rigging forming a web against the slightly lighter sky. Men are already working, moving cargo. The dock workers are the ones who showed up today because they have to show up, because the shipping company doesn't care about Christmas, and if you don't show up, someone else will, and then you won't be called tomorrow, or the day after. Josef's foreman has an office in a wooden shed at the end of Pier 12. You find it. You show the note. The foreman, a stocky man named O'Brien, red-faced from the cold, and what might be something else entirely this early in the morning, looks at the note, looks at you, looks at the children. Kaczmarek's wife, he says. Yes. He any better? Getting better. O'Brien nods. He opens a drawer. He counts out coins with the slow deliberateness of a man who has done this many times, and has made peace with the fact that it takes as long as it takes. He hands you $1.60. Good man, Kaczmarek, he says. You tell him to rest. Doc'll be here after the holidays. Thank you, you say. You close your fingers around the coins. $1.60. Plus the 12 cents you still have. $1.72. Total. You stand on the dock in the cold and you do the arithmetic. Rent is $2 a month. It's due the 1st of January. If you spend any of this on food, on Christmas, you'll be short for rent. Not very short, maybe, if Josef can work a few days before the 1st, but short. You could not spend it. You could put it all away for rent, buy just the bare necessities, make it through the holiday on bread and boiled water. You think about Ania's face in the dark. Does Święty Mikołaj know we're here? You put $1 in your apron pocket, rent money, touch nothing. The remaining 72 cents you hold in your hand. 72 cents. And you turn back toward Orchard Street. By 7 o'clock, Orchard Street is fully awake. This is what you need to understand about Christmas Eve on the Lower East Side in 1887. For half the people on this street, it's not Christmas Eve. It's Thursday. It's a work day. The Jewish families, and they are the majority in this building, in this block, in this neighbourhood. They don't celebrate Christmas. The Italian families on the 3rd floor celebrate it, but not on the 24th, not yet. The German family above you, there's a German family above you, the Schmidts, Heinrich Schmidt, and his mother and his wife and their 4 children. Heinrich works in a hat factory. They celebrate it, and tonight you can be sure there will be the smell of their dinner coming through the ceiling, that particular German Christmas smell of goose fat and roasted something and spices you don't have names for yet. And then there are you and the handful of other Polish families in the building, and the one Irish family who moved in last month on the 6th floor, and all of you are celebrating Christmas, and all of you are poor, and all of you are making of it what you can. The market on Orchard Street on Christmas Eve is one of the things that makes this city, this specific neighbourhood, worth the freezing winters and the smell and the stares. Because on this street, even the poorest of you can find something. You start at the bread cart. Chala, the baker's son asks you. Plain, you say. You pick up a loaf, the brown crust kind, the kind that's dense and heavy and fills you up. You pay 2 cents, then the vegetable cart. The man behind it is wrapped in so many layers of coat and shawl that he is essentially spherical. His breath comes in gusts of white steam. He has potatoes, onions, carrots, a few withered apples at the end of a long season, and something green and leafy that might once have been kale. Potatoes, you say? £3. Penny and a half, he says. A penny, you say. Penny and a quarter. Penny. He looks at you. He's been doing this since dawn. You've been doing it since you were old enough to go to market with your mother back home. Penny and a half, he says, and I throw in the onion. You look at the onion. It's a good onion, large, papery skinned, solid. Done, you say. Then, the herring barrel, a penny for 3. The man who runs the barrel smells entirely of brine, as though the pickling process has begun on him personally. He wraps the herring in newspaper. You put it in your basket. You stand at the edge of the market and look at what you have. Bread, potatoes, onion, 3 herrings. You can make pierogi with the potatoes and the onion if you had flour. You don't have flour. You can make herring and potato soup if you had more time and more coal. You might have enough coal. You have 68 cents left. And then you see the tree man. He's set up at the corner of Orchard and Hester, this man, and what he's selling is small pine trees. Not beautiful trees. Not the kind of trees that get put up in the parlours of the brownstones uptown. The kind that get decorated with glass ornaments imported from Germany, and candles in little metal holders and strings of popcorn by children who have never been cold inside their own homes. These are small trees, scraggly, barely trees at all, really, more like enthusiastic branches. The man selling them got them from somewhere upstate, probably, or maybe from the scrubby pines on the New Jersey shore, and he loaded them onto a cart, and he's been standing here since before sunrise, and he's cold, and he has 12 left. The sign on his cart says 5 cents. 5 cents for a Christmas tree. You stand and look at the trees. Tomasz has gone very still beside you. He is 6 years old, and he is looking at those trees with the intensity of a person who wants something so badly they're afraid to let their face show it. Anya has spotted them too. She's pointing. "Mama! Tree!" "I see it," you say. "We could have a tree," she says. "We could," you say very carefully, not promising anything. "Can we?" Tomasz asks. Just the question. No pleading, no pressure. Just the flat, clear request from a 6-year-old who has already learned that demanding things doesn't help. 5 cents. You think about the dollar in your pocket, the rent money. You don't touch it. You look at your remaining 68 cents. You could. You think about the apartment, about the corner near the window where the light comes in the morning, about how small the room is and how a scraggly tree in the corner would make it smaller, about how Josef would see it when he got up to sit by the stove. You think about what your mother used to do with the tree at home, the way she'd tie little scraps of bright fabric to the branches and little figures made from straw, and how the whole dark winter room would look different with that tree in the corner. 5 cents, you say to the tree man. He hands you a tree. It's 1.5 feet tall. It smells like winter and forest and cold and everything that is not Orchard Street. You hold it by the trunk and the needles prickle your palm and you bring it to your face, just for a second, and breathe. Pine, cold, outside, somewhere else. Tomasz takes the tree from you without being asked. He carries it at his side very carefully, as though it were breakable. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. You come back to find the building fully alive. This is the other thing I want you to understand. This building is not simply a place where people sleep. It is a place where people live. All of it. All the life. in all its noise and smell and conflict and occasional joy. And on Christmas Eve it is louder and stranger and more present than on ordinary days. From the second floor you can hear someone, Mrs. Abramowitz, you think, singing. Not Christmas music, something else, something with a minor key that climbs and falls in a way that sounds like it comes from a long way away and a long time ago. From the third floor, the Benedetti side, an argument, sharp Italian syllables, a man's voice and a woman's voice, and then a pause, and then laughter, which is perhaps better than nothing. From the fourth floor, the ceaseless tap-tap of Mr. Abramowitz at his buttons, though slower now, as though even he is letting the day in, just slightly. From the floor above yours, the Schmitz, the smell of something good, something that involves fat rendering in a pan, and something sweet, and the faint smell of spruce from their own tree, the real kind, the kind Heinrich Schmidt probably paid 50 cents for because his hat factory has been doing well this year. You come into your apartment. Josef is up. He's sitting at the table by the window, not in bed, up, dressed, pale but upright, with a cup of hot water and a piece of bread in front of him. He looks at you when you come in. He looks at the children. He looks at the tree. His face does something. A tree, he says. Tomasz is going to put it in the corner, you say. In the... He stops. He clears his throat. He says in a careful voice to Tomasz, the corner by the window is good. Tomasz carries the tree to the corner by the window and stands it upright. It's small enough that it doesn't need anything to hold it. He just leans it against the wall, the base resting in a corner, and it stays. It's a very small, very scraggly, very wonderful tree. We don't have anything for it, you say. You say this mostly to yourself, to the room, to whatever combination of hope and practicality lives in you. And then Anya reaches into the pocket of her coat, a pocket you didn't know she had, a pocket she found or made or was given at some point without your noticing, and she pulls out a piece of red yarn, just a piece of yarn, red, maybe 6 inches long. She walks very seriously to the tree. She ties the yarn to one of the upper branches. She steps back and looks at it. That's for the tree, she says. What happens next is something you'll remember. Not because anything dramatic happens, because of what happens quietly. You sit down at the table and you begin to tear small pieces from the newspaper that wrapped the herring. You fold them. You've seen your mother do this. Make little paper birds, little twisted shapes, tied with thread for the tree at home. You haven't done it in years. Your fingers remember. Tomasz watches you for a moment. Then he sits down across from you and picks up a piece of newspaper. Show me, he says. You show him. His first few attempts are shapeless. Then he gets it. That particular moment when the hands and the pattern align, and suddenly it's right. The fold, the tuck. He holds up his first small paper shape. It's not quite a bird. It's something. It's something he made. He gets up and puts it on the tree. Anya, watching from the bed, slides down and comes to the table. You give her a piece of paper. She crumples it into a ball, looks at it, looks at you. This too, she says. Also a decoration, you say, because it is. She puts the paper ball on the tree. Josef from the window, he can't do much, he's still weak, takes the red string from the sewing basket and cuts off 2 feet of it. He measures and cuts and makes something from the string, working slowly, his big dock worker's fingers careful with the delicate task. It takes him 10 minutes. When he's done, he holds it up. It's a small star, knotted string in the shape of a star. He holds it out to Anya. She takes it. She walks to the tree. She can barely reach the top branch. She stretches up on her toes. She can just hook the string star over the highest twig. The star tilts, stays. The tree has 1 red yarn piece, 2 paper shapes, 1 crumpled paper ball, and a knotted string star. It is without question the ugliest Christmas tree you have ever seen. It is without question the most beautiful Christmas tree you have ever seen. By noon, the smell of your cooking has attracted attention. This is how the building works. The smells travel. They always travel. In summer it's worse. The airshaft becomes a kind of olfactory mixing chamber, and you can smell dinner from every apartment simultaneously, a layered history of every family's supper. In winter it's slightly better, because the cold dampens things, but not much better. When you start the onion in the pan, just the onion, in the small amount of rendered lard you have, the smell of it fills the room immediately, and then, as onion smells do, it begins to migrate. There's a knock at the door at 12:30. It's Mrs. Rosen from the 5th floor. She's a small woman, maybe 60, though time has compressed her further, and she's holding a pot. "I made too much," she says, in her heavily accented English. Her English, like yours, is functional and accented and gets the job done. You look at the pot. Through the lid you can smell something. Chicken, you think. Something with chicken in it. "Mrs. Rosen, you don't need to—" "I made too much," she says again firmly, and she holds out the pot. You take the pot. Inside, chicken broth thick with noodles, with pieces of tender carrot and something green. Real broth from a real chicken, the kind you can't afford. You look up at her. She shrugs, with the specific shrug of a woman who does not want to be thanked for things she considers basic human decency. "Your husband," she says, with a nod toward the back room where Josef is resting. "He needs soup." "Mrs. Rosen—" "Eat," she says, and turns and goes back up the stairs. You stand in the doorway holding the pot. There is something about this moment, the weight of the pot, the warmth of it through the towel she wrapped it in, the smell, that is almost too much to receive. Generosity when you're desperate is a specific kind of weight. It is not a light thing to be given what you need. It costs something to accept it. You carry the pot inside. Tomasz looks at you and then at the pot. "What's in it?" he asks. "Soup," you say. "What kind?" "The kind Mrs. Rosen made," you say. He doesn't ask more questions. He gets the bowls. After the children eat and Josef eats and the pot is washed and returned up to Mrs. Rosen with as much thanks as you can manage in a mixture of Polish and English and gestures, after all of that, you go out again. Not because you have to, because this particular afternoon, Christmas Eve in New York in 1887, is one of those afternoons that seems to want to be witnessed. You leave Tomasz with his father. You take Ania on your hip. She's getting heavy. You'll have to start making her walk more soon, but today you keep her close, and you go out into the afternoon. The light has changed. In December, in New York, the light is already going by 3 o'clock, already bronze and tired and heading toward dark. But in this particular hour, at 2 in the afternoon on December 24th, the light is doing something, hitting the windows of the tenements at an angle that makes them briefly glow, so that for a few minutes the grimy buildings of Orchard Street look as though they're lit from within. The street has changed character from the morning. The market is still going. Push carts don't close for Christmas Eve, not here. But there's something different in the energy of it. The urgent efficiency of the morning has given way to something slightly looser, slightly more festive. Children are running between the carts. Somewhere, someone has a fiddle, and someone else is dancing, actually dancing in the street, in the cold, in their coat. A young woman dancing to the fiddle music with her arms out and her face turned up. You stand and watch her for a moment. She's maybe 16. She has a knit cap pulled low over dark hair, and she's wearing boots that are too big for her, and she's dancing like she doesn't care who sees, which either means she doesn't care, or she knows that everyone around her is too busy surviving to judge. Anya watches her with absolute attention. "Can we dance?" she asks. "When we get home," you say. "Promise?" "Promise," you say, and mean it. You keep walking. At the corner of Hester and Ludlow there's a crowd gathered around something. You stop, carefully, because crowds in this neighbourhood can be trouble, though mostly they're not. Mostly they're just people wanting to see something, and you look. It's a man with a magic lantern show. He set it up on a cart, a box with a candle inside and a lens in front, and he's projecting images onto the white painted side of the building across the narrow street. The images are small and slightly blurry and flickering, but you can make out what they are. Drawings, photographs, images from somewhere else. A mountain, a cathedral, a ship. The children around you are very quiet. There's maybe 20 of them, of all ages, standing in the cold watching the pictures appear and disappear on the wall. The man with the lantern, he's charging a penny. You can give him a penny and you'll get to watch for a while. You think about your remaining 63 cents. You think about Anya's face. You give him a penny. He gives you a spot near the front. For the next 15 minutes you stand in the cold on the corner of Hester and Ludlow, and you watch pictures of places you'll never go projected onto a tenement wall, and Ania's small body is warm against yours, and her mouth is open, and her eyes are enormous, and when a picture of a forest appears, a real forest, green and deep, she says, "That's where Shwenti Mikawai lives." "Yes," you say. That's where he lives. You almost don't go. You know about the settlement houses, the missions, the charity organisations that set up near the tenements and give out things at Christmas. You've seen the notices. You've heard people talk about them. You've also watched the faces of people coming out of them. That specific expression, the one that sits between gratitude and something else, something with teeth, that you'll only understand if you've needed something you couldn't provide yourself. But you think about Tomasz and the way he carried the tree, and you think about Anya and the red yarn. You go. The settlement house is on Rivington Street, 2 blocks north. It's in a building that looks like it might have been a warehouse, with a new front door painted green and a sign that says Rivington House above it. There's a line outside. A long line. You take your place at the end. The line moves slowly. You're standing in the cold. Anya has fallen asleep against your shoulder, which saves you from having to answer questions but adds to the weight on your arm. The woman in front of you has 3 children with her, all boys, all standing with the patient stillness of children who have waited in lines before. She glances at you. You glance at her. She's Italian, you think, or perhaps Greek. "First time?" she says. "Yes," you say. "They give food basket," she says. "Small basket. Flour, some canned things. Sometimes there is," she hesitates, "candy. For children." "Candy," you say. "Small candy. But children." She shrugs expressively. You understand. The line moves. Inside the settlement house it smells like clean things. Wood polish and something institutional. Soap. and the kind of order that comes from having the space and resources to maintain it. The women running the distribution are wearing clean aprons. They're brisk and efficient and not unkind. They're doing their best in a situation that doesn't have a good solution. But there's something in the organised charity of it that sits in your chest like a stone. You reach the table. A woman with grey hair and wire-rimmed glasses looks at you. Family, she says. Husband, 2 children, you say. Husband working. He is sick, you say. He is... You struggle with the English word. He will be working again soon. She writes something in her book. She reaches under the table. She hands you a basket. Inside, a pound of flour, a tin of condensed milk, a small jar of molasses, a paper twist of hard candy. You can hear the pieces clicking against each other through the paper. A booklet of some kind. Religious probably, but you'll use the pages for the children to draw on. You look at the basket. Thank you, you say. The woman with the glasses looks at you over the rims. Her expression is, you don't know exactly what it is. Not pity, not contempt. Something more complicated. Merry Christmas, she says. Wesołych świąt, you say, because you're not sure which holiday you're having today, or what it means, or what it costs. But you know what it is to be seen and to be given. Something when you needed it. And that doesn't require a particular language. You go up to the roof. This is something you do sometimes when the apartment is too much, when the walls press in, when you need to remember that there is space in the world, that the world is not only 7 feet by 9 feet. The roof of 47 Orchard Street is accessed through a door on the 6th floor that is technically locked but practically not, because the lock has been broken since before you arrived and no one has fixed it, because no one is coming to fix it. You push through the door and the cold hits you again, sharper than the street, up here, wind with nothing to stop it, but the view. Anya is awake again now, and she's on your hip, and she sees it the way she always sees it, as though it's new. Mama, the bridge. Yes, the bridge. The Brooklyn Bridge opened 4 years ago, 1883, and you can see it from this roof. Just the upper towers visible over the buildings to the south, the 2 Gothic arches rising above the skyline with their cables spreading out like what? Like the strings of a harp the size of a cathedral. Like something too large to have been made by human hands, though human hands made it, and human hands were lost making it, and the men who built it are some of them buried in the stones of it. It is 3 o'clock on Christmas Eve afternoon, and the light is going bronze, and the bridge towers catch it and hold it, and for a moment they seem to be made of light itself. You have seen this bridge every day for 2 years, and it still does this to you. To the south, past the bridge, you can see, not see, exactly, sense, at the edge of vision, the harbour, the boats, and out in the harbour, though it's too far and too hazy today to see clearly, you know it's there, the Statue of Liberty. She's been there for a year. November 1886, the dedication. You didn't go. You couldn't. You had the children, and the crowds were enormous, and it wasn't your holiday exactly, or wasn't supposed to be, but you went up to this roof the night of the dedication and you watched the sky over the harbour, and you could see the fireworks, and you could see, just barely, the glow of the torch. Give me your tired, your poor. Someone read you that once. The poem on the base. A woman at the settlement house, actually, a different settlement house, the one on Henry Street. She read it to a room of women, in several languages, whoever was willing to translate. You heard the Polish version, whispered by a woman beside you. Your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. You think about that phrase sometimes, yearning to breathe free. You think about the airshaft. You think about the 14 toilets for 347 people. You think about the way the cold comes through the walls. You think about the bridge. You think about the tree in the corner with the knotted string star on top. Cold, Mama, Anya says. Yes, you say, almost done. You look at the harbour, at the bridge, at the towers and the cables and the light that's almost gone now, and the city spreading out in every direction. The tenements stacked against each other, the elevated railways threading through them, the church spires rising up where they can, and you think, this is where you are. Not where you imagined being when you were a girl in a village outside Krakow thinking about America. America was supposed to be... Actually, you're not sure what it was supposed to be. Easier, maybe. Better, probably. Different, certainly. But this is where you are. 12 people on a roof in the cold looking at a bridge. No, not 12. Just you and Anya. But 12 families in the building below. 12 families doing what you're doing. Trying to make something from what they have. On the day the world says you should have something to give. Can we go in now? Anya says. Yes, you say. Let's go in. The building has a different quality in the evening. The working day is over, mostly. The sweatshop sound from the second floor has stopped. The tap-tap of Mr. Abramovitz's buttons has slowed, and then, just after 5, has stopped entirely. Even Mr. Abramovitz, it turns out, has a line. The cooking smells are everywhere. From above the Schmitz, goose. The smell of goose fat rendering is absolutely unmistakable, and it fills the building from the 3rd floor up, fatty and rich and impossibly good smelling. From the 3rd floor, something spiced, something with tomatoes, and garlic and herbs you don't have names for. An Italian Christmas smell. From the 2nd floor, brisket. The Jewish families who celebrate this season in their own way have made brisket, and the smell of slow-braised beef fills the hall. From your floor, herring and potatoes, bread, and from the molasses and the flour from the settlement house, a flatbread you made this afternoon on the stovetop, a sweet flatbread, slightly burned on one side, that counts tonight as dessert. Tomasz has been drawing at the table. You gave him the pages from the booklet from the settlement house, the text pages, leaving the illustrated ones for Anya. And he's been drawing all afternoon, something he does when he's given the chance, careful, specific drawings in whatever medium he can find. Tonight he's using the stub of a pencil. You look over his shoulder. He's drawing the bridge. Not from memory. He was too young to see much of it, and he can only see the top of it from the roof. But he's drawn what he imagines it looks like. 2 towers, cables, the water below. The cables are very carefully rendered, dozens of individual lines. The towers have little windows. That's good, you say. He looks up. Looks back down. I want to go see it, he says. We'll go, you say. When Papa is better. Really? Really. He looks at the drawing. I'm going to build bridges, he says, when I'm grown up. He says this with a complete seriousness of a person announcing a fact, not a wish. You look at your son, thin, dark-haired, 6 years old, drawing bridges at the table of a 7 by 9 foot room in a tenement on Orchard Street on Christmas Eve. Yes, you say, I think you will. Here is the problem with Christmas in a tenement in 1887. Candles. The Christmas tree, such as it is, wants candles. Specifically the tradition, the one coming from Poland and Germany and everywhere else in Central Europe, is to put tiny candles on the tree branches and light them on Christmas Eve and stand around the tree in the warm glow. The problem is, this building has burned before. Not while you've lived in it. But you know about the 1-2 years before you came, on Mulberry Street. The one where the candles on someone's Christmas tree caught the curtain, and the curtain caught the wall, and 7 people died, because the stairs were the only way out, and the fire found the stairs before the people did. Every building on every street in this neighbourhood has a story like that. The wooden buildings especially. But even the brick ones, once the fire gets inside into the wood floors and the furniture and the fabric stored for piecework, even the brick ones go fast. You know this, so you compromise. 1 candle, 1, on the table, not near the tree. A stub of tallow candle, 3 inches long, that will last maybe an hour. You light it at 6 o'clock. The room transforms. This is the specific magic of candlelight in a small room. Not that it makes things beautiful exactly, but that it makes the edges go away. The walls retreat into shadow. The ceiling disappears. The room is no longer a 7-foot box of plank walls. It becomes a warm centre in the dark, a small circle of amber light, and outside the circle is not poverty and cold, and the smell of the building, but simply night, the ordinary darkness of the world. Josef is up. He's sitting at the table wrapped in a blanket, looking better, genuinely better, the fever colour gone and something closer to himself in his face. He's holding Ania in his lap, which is something she's been demanding since he got up, and which he's been giving her gladly. The closeness, the warmth of her. Tomasz is standing by the tree looking at it. "Papa," he says. "Look." Josef looks. "Good tree," he says. "Mama bought it." "I know." Josef looks at you. "Good tree." In the candlelight, the small tree with its paper birds and crumpled ball and knotted string star looks like something that matters. The shadows from the candle make it seem larger than it is. The scraps on it catch the light. You take the paper twist from the settlement house basket. You open it. Hard candy. 8 pieces, mixed colours, red and yellow and one that might be green. You put 2 pieces on the tree, tied in place with thread, as decorations. You give 2 pieces to Tomasz, 2 to Ania. You and Josef split the last 2. The candy is very sweet and slightly artificial tasting and absolutely wonderful. You sit in the candlelight and eat your candy and look at the tree. Outside, Orchard Street continues its life. The sounds of it, voices, a cart, the distant L train, someone's dog, come up through the window glass, muffled. "Do you want me to tell a story?" Josef asks. The children settle. Even the building seems to settle. Josef has 2 stories he tells. The first one is about a man who could speak to animals, and the animals gave him gifts, and he used the gifts to save his village from a winter so cold the river froze all the way to the bottom. This is the children's story, the one for Ania and Tomasz, and he tells it with the patience and rhythm of a man who has told it before, who learned it from someone who told it to him, who learned it from someone else. The story moving backward through time until it reaches a village somewhere in the past that doesn't exist anymore except in the telling. The children listen. Ania falls asleep halfway through, slumped against her father's chest, her small hand still wrapped loosely around her remaining piece of candy. Tomasz stays awake to the end. When the man in the story gives back the animals gifts and is left with nothing again, but the village is safe, Tomasz asks. Was the man happy? Josef considers this. He was something better than happy, he says. Tomasz thinks about this. What's better than happy? Necessary, Josef says. He knew he was necessary. Tomasz thinks about this for a while. Okay, he says, which is what he says when he's received information he needs to process. Then he falls asleep. You put both children in the bed, Anya still holding her candy. You put the blanket over them. You sit back down at the table. The candle is burning low. The second story, you say to Josef, the real one. He looks at you. He knows which story you mean. Another night, he says. Tell me now, you say. So he tells you the second story, the one for grown-ups. The one that's not about a man who talks to animals, but about a night 2 years ago on the docks. A night he's never told you about, when something happened that could have been very bad and wasn't. And the reason it wasn't was luck or God or simply the angle of a crate falling wrong. And he's been carrying this story ever since, this almost thing. And tonight, in the last of the candlelight, he tells it to you. He tells it quietly, so the children don't wake. You listen. Outside, someone is playing a violin. You can hear it through the window, coming from somewhere in the building or somewhere on the street. A slow, particular melody that you half recognize. Something folk, something old. The candle dies. You sit in the dark. I'm glad you told me, you say. I should have told you sooner, he says. Yes, you say. But you told me now. It starts at 9 o'clock. You're not asleep yet. You're lying in the dark listening to Josef breathe. Better, steadier, the sick sound fading. And you're almost over the edge into sleep. That last half second before consciousness lets go. And then someone in the hall is shouting. You're up before you're fully awake. This is the thing about living in this building. You learn to respond to certain sounds without thinking. A shout in the hall at 9 o'clock at night is never a good thing. You're through the bedroom door and into the hall before you've made a decision. The smell hits you first. Smoke. Real smoke. Not the coal stove and cooking smoke that lives in this building permanently. Something different. Something sharp and wrong. The hall is filling with it. Not from your floor, from below, from the second floor, you think, or maybe the third, and it's moving up. The way fire smoke moves, finding the stairwell, rising. Fire! That's Mr. Benedetti from below you, his voice huge in the narrow stairwell. Fire in the second floor! Get out! You go back into the apartment. Josef is already up, already moving. Sick or not, he's up. And the children are awake, confused. Anya crying. Tomasz sitting very still in the bed. Coat, you say. Both of you. Now. You move fast. Faster than you've ever moved in this apartment. Coats. Your apron with the money. You don't think, you just take it. Josef's coat. You hand him the children's coats. He dresses them. You find your shoes. Go, Josef says. I'm coming. You come with me, you say. I'm right behind you. Josef. Go. You take Anya. You take Tomasz's hand. You go into the hall. The smoke is heavier now. Not choking. Not yet. But present. Real. The kind that coats the back of your throat and makes your eyes water. The stairwell is full of people. Mrs. Benedetti with her shawl. The Schmidt children from above. Heinrich leading them, his mother in her nightgown. Mr. Abramovitz in his coat, carrying something. His work tools, you realize, the buttonhole tools, the most valuable thing he owns. Down! Someone is shouting. Everyone down! You go down. The stairs are chaotic and dark, and someone's candle goes out, and for a moment you're moving in complete darkness, holding Anya against your chest. Tomasz's small hand crushing your fingers, people pressing from behind and below. And then you're on the ground floor. And then you're outside. The cold air hits you like salvation. You stand on the sidewalk across the street from the building and you look up, and there, second floor back apartment, you can see it. A glow in the window, orange light, and a small column of smoke coming out around the window frame. Small. You didn't understand until this moment how small a fire can be while still being terrifying. It's not a catastrophe. Not yet. Not this time. The building is emptying. People pouring out the front door in various states of undress, clutching things. A pot, a blanket, a baby. Josef comes out. You see him, and you grab his arm. You don't mean to grab so hard. And he puts his hands on your shoulders and looks at your face. It's all right, he says. I'm all right. The children, they're right there. They are. Tomasz standing beside you. Anya clinging to your coat. Both of them wide-eyed. The fire, it comes out later that it started in the Marchetti apartment. A candle too close to a piece of hanging fabric. The fabric catching. The draft from the window feeding it. The fire is contained by the time the engine arrives. The fire engine, horse-drawn, the horse's hooves enormous on the cobblestones, the men working the pump with efficient speed. The fire is out by 9:30. The Marchetti apartment is destroyed. The family is fine. They got out, all 5 of them. But their apartment is a black, wet ruin, and they will sleep in the settlement house tonight. And their Christmas is the specific kind of devastation that makes every other small hardship look manageable. The rest of you stand in the cold street and wait to be told it's safe to go back in. An hour in the cold. You've wrapped Ania in your coat. Tomasz is pressed against your side. Josef is standing straight, though you can see what it costs him. The cold, the exertion when he's not well. You hold his arm. Around you, your neighbours. These people you live with, above and below, through thin walls. These people you know by the sounds of their lives rather than by anything so formal as friendship. They're all out here now, in the cold, in various stages of undress. Some of them have been here before in fire scares. Some are frightened, some are angry. Mrs. Benedetti is standing near you. She's wrapped in her black shawl and she's speaking in Italian, something quiet and rhythmic that might be a prayer or might be a song. Mr. Schmidt, the hat factory worker from above, has his children around him, and he's telling them something in German, and you catch the word Weihnachten, Christmas, and his voice when he says it is the same voice Josef uses when he tells stories, something that means, this is still this. A boy from the 4th floor, you don't know his name, a boy of maybe 9, is standing near the edge of the group, his arms wrapped around himself. He doesn't have a coat. He left without a coat. Tomasz sees him. Without saying anything, without being asked, Tomasz steps away from you and walks over to the boy. He stands next to him. After a moment he moves closer. After another moment he leans against him slightly, the way people lean together in the cold. The boy leans back. 2 boys standing together in the street at 9:30 on Christmas Eve, keeping each other slightly less cold. You watch this. You think about what Josef said. Necessary. You think, yes, that. The fire captain gives the all clear at 10:15. The building fills back up slowly. People going back to their apartments or, in the case of the Marchettis, being led somewhere else. Before you go up, you stop at the Marchettis. You don't know the Marchettis well. They're newer to the building than you, arrived 6 months ago. from somewhere in southern Italy. The mother, whose name you think is Rosa, has been friendly at the pump, but you haven't shared more than a few words. She's standing with her 5 children, ranging from maybe 2 to maybe 12, watching the fire captain and not looking at anyone. You go to her. You give her the bread. The whole loaf. She looks at it. She looks at you. "Merry Christmas," you say. She says something in Italian that you don't understand, but her eyes fill, and she takes the bread, and she holds it like it weighs more than it does. You go upstairs. Your apartment smells faintly of smoke, but it's otherwise intact. The tree is still in the corner. The knotted string star is still on top. You light the last inch of the tallow candle. You put the children to bed. You're still awake at midnight. Joseph is asleep. Finally, really asleep. The even breathing of someone who has stopped fighting sleep and given in to it. You lie beside him and listen to the building settle. The settlement sound of old wood contracting in the cold. The distant sound of someone, you think it might be Mrs. Benedetti, still moving around in her apartment below. The L train, which runs through the night less frequently but doesn't stop, and something else. From somewhere in the building, you're not sure which floor, the sound travels strangely here. Music. Someone is playing. A piano? No. There's no piano in this building. Something smaller. An accordion, maybe. A harmonica. It's a carol. You recognize it after a moment. Stille Nacht, the German one, Silent Night, which the German family upstairs would know, and which the Polish and Italian and Romanian families all know in their own versions, because this song has crossed every border in Europe and arrived here with everyone who came. You lie in the dark and listen to someone playing Silent Night on an instrument you can't see, in an apartment you can't identify, in a building that is still faintly warm despite the cold and still faintly smoky despite the hour. You don't sing. The children are asleep, but your lips move with the words, Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht, Silent Night, Holy Night. You wake before the children, this time deliberately. You lie in the faint pre-dawn dark and think about what you're going to do. Then you get up. You go to the basket from the settlement house. The flour, the tin of condensed milk, the jar of molasses. You make pancakes. Real pancakes, or the closest you can get. Flour and condensed milk and a little molasses and the lard from the tin and water, mixed together and cooked on the stovetop. They're dense and slightly sweet and slightly sticky, and they fill the room with a smell that is unambiguously the smell of something special being made for breakfast. When the children wake up, they smell it before they see it. Anya comes through the door first. She stops. She looks at the plate on the table, a plate of pancakes, 8 of them, stacked, with a small pool of molasses for dipping. She looks at the tree. She looks at you. "Did he come?" she says. You've been thinking about this moment since before dawn. You've been thinking about what to say, about truth and kindness and the specific calculus of what children need to believe when the world is what it is. You say, "He left the pancakes." Anya looks at the pancakes, and the tree, you add, and the candy. She looks at the tree with its paper birds and crumpled ball and string star. "He made decorations," she says, a little uncertainly. "He used what was there," you say. "That's what he does, in the houses where people have made what they have. He works with what they've made." Anya thinks about this. "He's clever," she says. "Very," you say. She sits down at the table. Tomasz comes in. He looks at the pancakes. He looks at you. He's 6 years old and he does not ask about Święty Mikołaj, but he looks at the pancakes and the tree, and his sister sitting at the table, and his face does something quiet and private and real, and then he sits down. "Merry Christmas," he says. "Wesołych świąt," you say. Joseph appears in the doorway of the back room. He looks at his family. He looks at the tree. He looks at the pancakes. "How?" he starts. "Settlement house," you say. "Flour and condensed milk." He nods. He sits at the table. You pour the hot water and the herb tea. You put a plate in front of everyone. You sit down. 4 people in a room that is 8 feet by 10 feet around a table with pancakes and herb tea and a tree with paper decorations and a string star on Christmas morning in New York City. You say grace. You say it in Polish, the version your mother said, which her mother said, which goes back further than any of you can track. Then you eat. Mrs. Rosen comes down again at noon. This time she brings her daughter, a young woman of maybe 25 named Sarah, who works in a garment factory, different from yours, same kind of work, and who speaks better English than either of you. They bring a piece of cake, dark, dense, with dried fruit in it. Something they've made for their own end of the year, Rosen explains through Sarah, but there is always extra. The children are summoned. The cake is cut. "Tell them thank you," you say to Sarah. Sarah translates. Mrs. Rosen waves her hand in that way she has, dismissive, meaning the thanks are unnecessary, meaning this is just what people do. But she stays for a while. She and Joseph talk, haltingly, with Sarah translating about the docks, about the factory where Sarah works, about what's been happening with the union organising that everyone whispers about and no one speaks of directly. And you sit and listen and watch the children eat cake and realise that this is, in some not-nothing way, a Christmas gathering. Not the kind from cards, not the kind from stories about warm houses and abundance, but people in a room sharing food, talking, existing together on a day that asks something of all of them. The Schmidt children appear at the door. Little Greta, 8, and her brother Hans, 6, who is Tomasz's age, and who he sees sometimes in the hall. "Mama said to give you this," Greta says, in her careful English. She hands you a small paper parcel. Inside, a piece of Pfefferkuchen, the German Christmas cookie, hard and spiced with something that smells like a whole other country. You break it carefully and give half to Tomasz and half to Anya. The flavour is ginger and something else. Something that might be anise or cardamom or some combination of spices that travelled here in someone's luggage from a kitchen in Hamburg. Tomasz eats it slowly, tasting. "What is it?" he says. "Christmas, you say." He nods, as though this is a sufficient explanation, because it is. The afternoon passes slowly, which is not a bad thing. Slowly means Joseph sitting by the window stronger today, strong enough to hold Ania on his lap and tell the second half of the animal story he didn't finish last night. Slowly means Tomasz at the table, drawing again, this time drawing the Marchetti family as he imagines them. He's never actually seen them, not to recognise, but he draws 5 figures standing in a building. Slowly means you sitting with a piece of mending you've had for a week, the methodical small work of repairing a tear in Tomasz's coat, your hands moving needle and thread, the faint pull of the fabric. The room is warm enough, the coal is enough. Outside the street is quieter than usual, not silent. This street is never silent, but a Sunday kind of quiet, the quality of a day when the market is slow and people are inside. Somewhere in the building someone has resumed the accordion, a different tune now, something livelier. Anya hears it and starts moving. She's on the floor, she has her rag doll, but the music is doing something to her. Her body starting to sway, her feet tapping. You said we could dance, she says. I did say that, you say. You put down the mending. The apartment is 8 feet by 10. This is not much room for dancing, but it is exactly enough. Josef plays a beat on the tabletop. You take Anya's hands, you move, slowly, carefully, the limited waltz of a very small space around the apartment, past the stove, past the table, past the tree in the corner. The knotted star swings slightly as you pass. Anya is laughing. Tomasz watches for exactly 1 minute, and then gets up and joins, taking his father's hands, and now Josef is dancing too despite being ill. Despite the doctor's unspoken instruction to rest, he's dancing, this big quiet man with his dock worker's hands, in a circle in the apartment, the 4 of you turning. The accordion from wherever it is in the building plays on. The winter light comes through the window. The tree turns slowly in the movement of air you're making. By 5, it's dark again. The building is doing the thing it does on evenings when something has happened. The fire last night, the shared day of survival, the small exchanges of food and music. The thing where it becomes briefly, collectively aware of itself. From the hall, voices. From below, more music. From above, the sound of the Schmidt's dinner. The goose having been eaten, and the aftermath of it being whatever comes after. Mrs. Benedetti knocks at 7. She doesn't speak English. She rarely tries. But she holds out something, a bowl covered with a cloth, and when you lift the cloth the smell rises out warm and herbed and complex. You don't know what it is. It's Italian and it's warm and she made it and she's holding it out to you on Christmas night. You take it. She says something in Italian short and makes the gesture of eating, brings her fingers to her lips. Thank you, you say. She nods. She goes. You set the bowl on the table. Inside, beans, cooked with something. Tomatoes, herbs, a piece of something meaty at the bottom that has given the whole thing its deep particular flavour. You'll learn later, when your Italian has grown enough, that this is a traditional Christmas Eve dish from wherever she comes from, this beans and something, and that for her, tonight, Christmas is still tonight, according to her family's calendar. And she has made her Christmas food, and she has given some of it to you. You serve it in the 2 bowls you have, splitting it between the 4 of you. It is, without question, the best thing you have eaten in months. The children go down at 8. Tomasz is asleep within minutes. He's been running on the excitement of the day, the fire last night, the dancing this afternoon, and it's all caught up with him. He makes one small sound when you put the blanket over him and then he's gone. Anya takes longer. She's holding a rag doll. She wants to know if the doll had a good Christmas. Did she asks. She had a very good Christmas, you say. Did she get presents? The red yarn, you say. Remember, you gave her the red yarn. Anya thinks about this. She wore it on the tree, Anya says. But she's still got to give it, you say. That's a present too. Anya looks at the doll. The doll looks back with her button eyes. She says okay, Anya says. She closes her eyes. In 3 minutes she is asleep. You and Josef sit at the table. The candle is gone. You're burning a small piece of fat in the tin lid of the condensed milk can, with a piece of cord for a wick. A trick Mrs. Rosen taught you. A wick light. A poor man's lamp. It gives barely enough light to see by, but it's something. Do you want to talk about the money? Josef asks. Tomorrow, you say. Rent is the first. Tomorrow, you say. He looks at you. Tomorrow, he agrees. You sit with the tiny light between you. I want to tell you something, you say. He waits. When you were sick, you say. When you were sick and I didn't know how long it would go on. You stop, find the words. I thought about going home, you say, for a week. I thought about it every day, packing up, going back. I thought, this is too hard. This isn't what I thought America would be. Joseph is quiet, and then I thought. You stop again. What? He says. I thought, what did you think it would be? You look at the tiny flame. I didn't think, actually. I hoped, but hoping isn't thinking. I hoped it would be easier, better, different. I didn't have a clear picture. And now, he says, now I have a clear picture, you say. You look around the room, the tree in the corner, the children sleeping, the walls, the floor, the ceiling. It's not easier, you say. It's harder than I expected, and you search for the word. It's exactly what it is. Not better or worse than what I imagined. Just real. Joseph looks at you. And, he says, and I'm not going home, you say. He nods, just a nod. Then he reaches across the table and puts his hand over yours. His hands are large, dock workers' hands, rope calloused and scarred in small ways, and warm, finally warm, the fever fully gone or close to it. You sit like that for a while. Outside, Orchard Street. Always Orchard Street. The faint sound of it, even at this hour, the voice of a city that doesn't sleep. The L train somewhere. The far-off sound of something that might be music or might be wind. I want to go to the bridge, Joseph says. What? The Brooklyn Bridge. I want to take the children, walk across it. When you're better, you say. I'm almost better, he says. By New Year's. New Year's Day, you say. We'll go. All of us, you agree. He squeezes your hand. You look at the tiny flame. The light goes out. The building is quieter now. Not silent, it's never silent, but quieter. The deep night quiet of a place where most people have finally surrendered to sleep. The tap-tap of Mr. Abramowitz has been gone for hours. The accordion finished long ago. Mrs. Benedetti's movement below has stilled. You lie in the dark beside Joseph and listen. The children's breathing, slow and even, the specific sound of complete sleep. Joseph beside you, breathing slow and clearing, the sick wet sound finally gone. Finally just a sound of a man sleeping, the building settling, the creak of old wood in cold, the faint groan of the building finding its equilibrium for the night, the way a ship sounds at anchor. Outside, the city. You close your eyes. You think about the things that happened today. The tree with its knotted star, the pancakes made from settlement house flour, the Schmidt's cookie and Mrs. Rosen's soup and Mrs. Benedetti's beans, the fire last night, how fast you moved, how fast everyone moved, the building becoming suddenly one thing instead of 14 separate things. The bread you gave to Rosa Marchetti, who took it and held it like it weighed more than bread. You think about Tomasz saying, I'm going to build bridges. You think about Anya saying, he's clever. You think about standing on the roof and seeing the bridge towers in the bronze December light, and you think, just for a moment before sleep takes it away, about what you told Joseph. It's exactly what it is. Not a beautiful city, not the city from the pictures on the immigrants' pamphlets that nobody believes anymore. A city of 347 people in a building that is too small for them, breathing shared air and shared coal smoke, pumping brown water from a shared pump, surviving shared fires and shared winters. A city where it is possible to be given soup when you're hungry, on any day, from a neighbour who does not share your language or your holiday, or your anything except a wall and a pump, and the specific weight of knowing that you are here, that you have arrived, that this is your life. You are tired. You are warm enough. Not warm, not the warmth of the houses uptown, not the warmth of the places in the pamphlets, but warm enough, fed enough, not full, not the full of a Christmas feast, not the goose from the Schmidt ceiling, but fed enough, safe enough, not safe, not the safety of a building that won't burn, of a husband who won't get sick, of a year without terror, but safe enough, tonight, in this moment, in this particular darkness. It is enough. The sounds begin to blur together, the way they do at the edge of sleep. The city outside and the building around you and the breathing of the people you love all becoming one continuous sound, a low particular hum, the hum of life happening in a very small space. And you think about Mrs. Benedetti downstairs and Mr. Abramowitz with his buttons and the link of them, the chain of people in this building, the Italians and the Jews and the Poles and the Germans and the Irish, all of them arriving from somewhere else with something like nothing, all of them making what they can. And you think about how strange it is, how absolutely strange to be here, to have come from a village outside Krakow to a building on Orchard Street in New York City in 1887, to have crossed an ocean and a language and a way of life, to have arrived somewhere that is hard and cold and smells of coal smoke and shared toilets, and to find that in this place, on this night, someone made you soup, someone left a piece of cake, someone knocked on your door in the dark and gave you beans, someone played Silent Night on an accordion. The sounds of the city fade, or maybe you're just listening less. The boundary between here and sleep begins to lose its definition. Your body has decided that consciousness is no longer required. Your limbs are heavy. Your eyes, behind their closed lids, are still. Outside, Orchard Street continues its long particular life. The night watchman will call the hour, the L train will run again, the 3:15, the last run before dawn, its wheels screaming slightly on the cold rails. The pushcart vendors are already sleeping in their carts or in the shelters they've found, ready to be up at 4, at 5 to set up and begin again. A building with 347 people in it breathes through the night. In one apartment on the 4th floor, a man sits at his table in the dark and touches the buttonhole tools he carried out into the cold street last night, feeling their weight, grateful for their presence. In the apartment next to yours, the couple with the new baby sleeps with the baby between them, the baby's face turned toward the faint warmth of its father's chest. 3 floors up, the little boy who stood next to Thomas in the cold, the one without a coat, is wrapped in something now, found or borrowed, and he's dreaming something that makes his face smooth and open. And in the building across the street, and the building past that, and the block past that, and the neighbourhood past that, the whole enormous accretion of the Lower East Side, 400,000 people on 4 square miles of island. They're sleeping or trying to sleep or sitting awake with the same calculations you were making before dawn, turning the numbers over in the dark. $1 and $1.50 and 12 cents and 5 cents for coal. What is possible? What is not? What can be made from what remains? This is the particular genius of the people in these buildings, in this neighbourhood, in this year. Not the genius of invention, though invention comes later, from the children of these apartments, from boys like Thomas who draw bridges at the table, and grow up to build them. Not the genius of art, though that comes too from the daughters of these tenements, who will make theatre and music and literature out of what they learned here about endurance. But the daily genius, the unrecorded genius, the genius that never gets a name because it disappears as soon as it's exercised, the genius of making something from nothing, finding the warmth in the cold room, tying a piece of red yarn to a branch and calling it a decoration, and having it be one, taking 12 cents and a note for $1.50 and a settlement house basket of flour and dried fruit and candy, and making Christmas. Your eyes are closed. Your breathing has slowed. The apartment is very still. Outside, a single bell rings somewhere in the dark. One of the Catholic churches, maybe, or the small synagogue on Eldridge Street. Its service long over, but its bells still marking the hours the way bells have marked them in this city for 200 years, the way bells marked them in Krakow, in Hamburg, in Naples, in Warsaw, in every place where people left with nothing and came here to try. The bell rings once, then twice, then stops. 2 o'clock in the morning. Christmas is almost over. Almost, but not yet. You sink deeper. The hum of the city becomes a tide, a slow, particular tide coming in over grey sand, the sound of it, the rhythm of it, carrying you out. Think about this before you go. 100 years from now, someone will stand on what used to be this block, and they will feel nothing of what happened here. The building will be gone. The push carts will be gone. The L train will be gone. The streets will be widened. The neighbourhood will change its character a dozen times. The faces and the languages and the smells will all be different. But the island will still be there. The harbour will still be there. And somewhere out in that harbour, in the dark, the statue will still be standing with her torch raised. Give me your tired. 200 years after that, someone will be lying in the dark, in some room, in some city, in some building, turning their own particular calculation over in their head, the night arithmetic of what they have and what they need, and whether the distance between those two things is crossable. And maybe, if they're lucky, they'll hear it. Not the L train, not the accordion, just the sound of a city breathing around them, doing what cities do, holding people inside themselves, letting them be warm enough and fed enough and safe enough for one more night. That's enough. That's enough. Let sleep come. Let the city do its work. Let the coal burn down. Let the string star on the scraggly tree catch the last of the light. Let the bridge towers stand in the dark harbour, the cables humming with whatever the wind has to say. Let Tomasz dream of bridges. Let Anya dream of forests. Let Josef breathe. Let the building hold you. You're here. You made it through this day. Whatever comes tomorrow, the dollar saved for rent, the return to work, the cold pump, the brown water, the smell of the hall, the stairs. With a loose banister, whatever comes, it comes after rest. Take the rest, you've earned it. You carried a tree through a market. You gave someone else your bread. You danced in 8 by 10 feet of space. You're 26 years old in a building on Orchard Street in New York City on the night of Christmas 1887, and you are, in this moment, in the only way that matters right now. Fine. Let sleep come. Let it come the way it came for the woman who is you, for Marta Kasmarek, who lay in this room on this night and listened to her children breathe and let the city carry her, the same as she did every night, the same as she would do again tomorrow, the same as the thousands of nights stretching back to a village outside Krakow and forward to children she doesn't yet know she'll have, grandchildren she'll never meet, who will tell stories about her the way stories always get told, less than the truth, more than the memory, shaped by distance into something almost beautiful. You are her for now. Let the dark be warm enough. Let the sound of breathing be enough. Let the knotted string star mean what it means. Slow down. Breathe out. Good night.